with Councillor McClure.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would like to see where we stand on creating a legislative team. I was hoping, I kind of forgot that Mayor Enriquez wasn't going to be here today, but when we went to Santa Fe, I had really hoped, and I had asked the question of city management to, how do we be more effective? Because this was literally my first rodeo. And I feel like we could have been more effective had we had more conversations about it. I'm not sure how this needs to be led, how this needs to be focused, but I do think we need to have a clear conversation about when we work with legislators, what does that look like, and be unified in that message. So I'd like to see if we could make some sort of legislative team. I don't know, yeah, there's a deadline here with city management changes, but if there's something we could do within the next 30 days, I would really like to look and see how we do that. Listening to the comments on public comment, this is what I emailed to somebody. It is a little disheartening to see everybody just get up and leave, right? Partially, let me give you an example, because, for example, the pool situation, we had a lady come by and say, "How dare you with the pool, how dare you?" And I'm sitting here trying to text saying, "Hey, we know about that. Like, that got shipped today. We have a path forward, but we can't say anything." So it's really hard when and she stayed so close to public comment for us, or at least for council comment for us. So it's really hard to have that sort of feedback. You're itching to give it, and you can't. So I think there should be, I don't know, I suggested let's have 2 sections for council comment, but everybody was like, no. But if there would be a way to have more conversation, I'm down for that. But I'd like to remind, I think that came up earlier too, we're really responsive via email. I am, probably to the detriment of my own sanity, but I would recommend that you reach out to us. And a lot of times we would have that feedback here too. So those are the 2 things I would like to say, and that's it. Thank you.
Sir Graham.
Thank you so much. Got 3 things on my list, so I'll try to go as quickly as possible. I also want to comment on public comment because this whole thing is my fault. So lots of people emailed, and I responded to everyone who had reached out to me. You kind of, after the first response, you kind of got a copy paste. So I actually proposed this change last year. I feel like it was October or November. It was November, Christine said, thank you. And it came about, actually this is a perfect illustration of why it came about, because for some reason around that time, we must have had a zone-a-palooza of, there was all of these zoning changes. A lot of people had reached out to me because, as our comments showed today, zoning changes tend to be something that brings folks out to comment on an agenda item because it's impacting their neighborhood in a very direct, very visible way. And to each of those people who had reached out on various zoning issues, who had asked me for a ballpark, when do you think my agenda item will come up, I would have to say, I have no idea. And the main timing wild card in a council session is open public comment. Could be 15 minutes, could be 2 hours, no idea. So I had thought about if we prioritized the agenda item commenters, whereas, so let's say, and I push back against the idea that you folks don't also have places to be, jobs to do, children, grandchildren to care for, all of the things that, at the end of the day, someone is going to have to wait longer than they want to have to wait. But I had suggested this change, to prioritize people with pressing issues for their own neighborhoods, and also, as Councilor McClure mentioned, we do have an opportunity here in council comment to address things a little more openly. So while I know that Mayor Enriquez made this announcement and he has taken most of the heat, yeah, it's my fault, so bring it. Second, Chief Administrative Officer Bencomo. So I know this is not new news because we had a press release, but I did want to shout out here that we are honored to share the dais with one of the top 50 women chief administrative officers of 2024. So. And super timely, Barb. I don't think there's a person up here who doesn't appreciate your expertise. Finally, big thanks to Las Montañas Charter School. Their Enlace student program had myself, Katrina, and Grace from Community Engagement out. They did an amazing study of the neighborhood around their school, had some really incredible, actionable changes to present to us that we are investigating now, and just an amazing environment. This is a 9 through 12 school with 194 students. So it's an incredibly tight-knit community, and seeing how they care about one another, about their school, and about their community was just absolutely inspiring. And these are the times that it's so rad to be a city councilor. I love going and seeing things like that. So many thanks to Assistant Principal Estrada, to Coach.
Thank you. And I also want to shout out CAO Bencomo for getting things done in a way that I have. Want to thank the ASCMV staff for doing an enormous vaccine and chipping.
Councilor Flores.
Thank you. I would, first of all, like to address the failure of SB 16. That was a very important piece of potential legislation that failed. I don't know why, but it was a bill that would have allowed, it's called the competency bill, and that has to do with the procedures that take place in court when someone is being tried for a certain misdemeanor, crime, whatever. And that bill would allow an assessment of that person's mental status. Is that person able to stand trial? Does that person fully understand? And I read it, and you know, it's several pages, but I read it, and it was pretty comprehensive. It was 20 pages. And it gave different alternatives as to what can be done, how the person can be helped, and unfortunately, it failed. And apropos of what Councillor McClure just said, I think that we would have been more effective as a body if we would have gone over this and then gone over this way before the legislature even met. Because it's crazy. It's crazy up there. It's crazy making the legislators. I don't know how they're able to weather it. But at any rate, there are problems. There are problems that would be and could be alleviated had this legislation been adopted. And that leads me into my being at the funeral of Officer Jonah Hernandez. All funerals are sad, but this one was superbly tragic. And he left behind a young wife and a toddler and a baby. And the funeral was just, it was incredible. There were police officers from different parts of the country, and we're talking not just a representative, but I think it's a huge, the place where the service was held was huge, and it was reported that there were maybe 200 people. I think there was a lot more than 200. I think there were so many police officers and so many people. And each officer from Las Cruces actually were able to give their farewells, the casket, and everything was done beautifully. I mean, I've attended my father's funeral, my mother's, my grandparents, my brothers, but this really, really, really hurt. And coattail it to the SB 16 that failed. And, you know, it's like, I think that the person that people are calling homeless, who killed our officer, is someone who needed help. And as a community, we failed. And we failed again with the legislature. And hopefully things will be different. And thank you, Councillor McClure, for bringing that up. We'll all be more in tune of what we're doing when we're up there to be more effective. We did meet. She did have, I believe his position is Chief of Staff, and his name is Jesse Guillen, Guillen. And he was very responsive. He was very, he wanted to know about about Amador Crossing. He apologized for not knowing the layout of Las Cruces, and City Manager Peely and I, all of us piped up and said, and I described what the Community of Hope was all about and how we owned the land. He wanted to know about the land. And it was okay. So we did, I think, well, I don't know. But anyway, that was a very, and I did walk away feeling that our goals were maybe met, but I don't know. I don't know yet. The other thing I want to share is that the Animal Service Center and we started that before COVID. Jamie Rickman was in charge of that, and we always had, it was just wonderful. And there's graduation at the end of a certain amount of weeks, and fortunately now it's been started up, and I want to thank Grace and Katrina, who did a wonderful job. And the presentation, this was on utilities, and it was at the utilities facility on Motel, and the presentation was by Adrienne Widmer, who's the director of utilities. She gave a 45-minute presentation, nonstop, very smooth, slides, everything, describing every aspect of utilities. And it is amazing. And it was very good to know that we have very good water. We have very good water. So, and it was absolutely lovely. And I left after 45 minutes, almost an hour, because it was cold and windy. It started to rain, and all I had was this little light jacket. So I left, but they also had actually stations where the different functions of utilities, which are many, were set up for people to look at and see how things really work. So, anyway, that was really wonderful. And I'll be, I think, representing the city. I have to talk to, I'll talk to Ipo before he leaves. I've been invited by the Chamber of Commerce in Jacksonville, Florida. My nephew is a member, to speak to the Mexican Chamber of Commerce about Cesar Chavez. I was a member of the Migrant Legal Services, and we were able to boycott lettuce and green grapes, and we finally got Cesar or the union to be allowed to join the AFL-CIO.
I have a couple things as well. I wanted to thank Natalie Green and her housing staff for inviting us to the groundbreaking a couple weeks ago for the Three Sisters affordable apartment complex that will be they have started to build a 70-unit affordable housing complex on the corner of Griggs and Walnut, and it's going to be beautiful, and I'm honestly really excited that that's coming into fruition, that the investments, the millions of dollars in investments we've made towards housing, we're finally going to start seeing them in real brick and mortar. So it's that one. I think there's a groundbreaking next week, and then a couple groundbreakings soon to follow. So we're very, very excited to make a tiny little bit of a dent in that giant housing unit shortage that we have. And then there was a little bit of a mistake. A social media post went out about 2 District 4 open house meetings that I will be having, because if you're anything like me, you'll forget. So I just wanted to say those couple of things before I jump into the meat of the the other pieces I wanted to regards to public comment, but also the press conference that Chief Story had last week. I won't go through all of it, but there is a statement in my response to that presentation that Chief made on my City Council website under District 4 News and Events. Please go read it. I touch on almost everything that he touched on, on even the three things that are out of our authority, which are at the state level. And I do want to say that in terms of Senate Bill 16, criminal competency determination, it did not fail, it just ran out of time. What's a failure is the structure of the legislature. And so it's 30 days and it ran out of time. However, and I've talked to Chief Story about this, and I want to make this very clear with the public, as a social worker and as someone who is seeing every day what is happening in our community, I don't take this lightly, and I do support this kind of legislation, but it should have its due diligence. We're literally talking about taking people's civil liberties away, so it should have a due diligence. It should have a significant funding source to meet the gaps that we obviously have in mental health care and substance use treatment facilities, which are very few, and even those have huge waiting lists. And so I do want to say that, and the other thing is that I've been in discussions with advocates around this legislation there is a commission that is out of the New Mexico Supreme Court that is working on this legislation. There's an adjacent advocacy task force that is being formed to advise that creation of that bill as it will come to the legislature in 2025. I am doing everything I can to ensure that Chief Story and some of us are in those conversations as well, that Southern New Mexico does not get left out of that conversation. So please go read my statement. It was well thought out, and even just today I'm having a hard time sort of choosing the words I want to say, because I feel like everything I say especially in the last couple of weeks, has been really getting distorted. It comes out of my mouth, then it gets distorted. I've seen it happen to Chief Story, I've seen it happen to many of us, and so it is not in my nature to be super thoughtful and thinking about what I'm going to say. So I just generally speak from the heart. But my thoughts are there on all of those things, including pretrial release and detention, on fentanyl, and on some of the more short-term and localized goals that the chief presented, which I am yet to hear any pushback from any of us. That is not what's happening. We're actually working incredibly well as a new council with our new chief. And I suspect things will move forward. What I have a difficult time with sometimes is that when folks accuse me of not listening, sometimes I think that because I don't just say yes to everything that's being thrown at me, then immediately I'm not listening. That my disagreement immediately means I'm not listening. And I want to push back gently against that, because that's not true. I think about these things really well and thoroughly, and me just saying, yes, let's bring back panhandling ordinance, to me that's not a sentimental disagreement. That is unlawful and unconstitutional, and frankly I think people think of it as this magic solution that will just get rid of all our problems, and frankly that's just not how this works. And but I have really thorough and well thought out ideas that we have been discussing over and over here, and so I would urge, I have yet to hear from the business group that is meeting. I hope they reach out to me. I would love to sit down with them and talk more about their ideas. If they think that in my progressive haze I have missed something and I am not seeing something that we are not doing, I want people to point that out. I would also challenge folks to send me a list of my so-called progressive failed policies that have led us here, and I will review them. I commit to reviewing them and to bringing them back if we need discussion, but please send me a list of those policies that you think I have led on that have failed. I would, like I said, love to review them. So to that point, so I'll stop there with that. I also wanted to bring up this really important and timely conversation about the type of public dialogue that I have been experiencing, definitely in the last couple of weeks, but honestly in the last couple of years. And maybe it's fitting that it's also Women's History Month. So happy Women's History Month to all the incredible and really amazing women on this dais, on this staff that lead a bunch of these departments. I respect you all deeply. But I did want to talk about this report that came out recently from the Brennan Center for Justice titled Intimidation of State and Local Office Holders, the Threat to Democracy. I'm just going to read a little bit of this. I apologize in advance. It's a little lengthy, but it's really important because I hear things here that say, well, you signed up for the job. These things are unavoidable. You signed up for the job. Somebody said the Chicken Little thing or whatever was dangerous and you have to deal with it. I'm going to push back on that. I think actually it's incredibly harmful to democracy that we normalize harmful language, threats, especially insults, harassment. Those kinds of things should not live in democracy. And just because we ran for office and chose to be here does not mean that I'm going to allow you to use me as your punching bag. That is actually not how democracy works. And I have found myself in the last couple of weeks feeling like I shouldn't speak up on that anymore. Maybe I shouldn't post so much. Maybe I shouldn't do these things. And this report helped me realize that that is actually not what I should be doing. So this report speaks about the big federal things that are happening to federal public officials, which are awful. Like there was Representative Steve Scalise in 2017 was shot. The U.S. Representative Nancy Pelosi's husband was brutally beaten in his home. They speak about those.
Good afternoon, Council.
Yet, over the same period, with far less attention and often little recourse, office holders serving in local and state governments across the country have faced a barrage of intimidating abuse. Threats and attacks constrain how freely office holders interact with constituents, narrow the spectrum of policy positions they feel safe to support, and make them less willing to continue in public service. Unaddressed, the problem stands to endanger not just individual politicians, but more broadly, the free and fair functioning of representative democracy at every level of government. And the kind of abuse that I'm referring to are insults, demeaning, derogatory, or offensive comments, gestures, or actions that upset, belittle, or humiliate, which I will say 2 weeks ago I felt like there was an attempt to do that. Harassment, persistent, uninvited behavior, attention, or actions that cause distress, fear, or discomfort, such as stalking. I know members of this council and previous councils have been stalked by members of the public. Threats, explicit or implicit expressions communicating an intention to harm, injure, or cause damage to an individual or others associated with them, implying imminent risk to a person's well-being and safety, and physical attacks, slapping, pushing, subjugation to projectiles, beating, abduction, assassination attempts, or other acts of violence. Those are obviously there's extremes there, but I have, in this job in the last 4-ish years, have been accused of not being a lawful citizen of this country. I have been accused of being anti-police. I have been accused of many things because I think often people disagree with me and then decide that that means I am anti-something else, that I am then posing a danger to their beliefs. And I highly recommend this report. It is to the public, open to the public, and I also want to say that the way that we fight some of these things, because that will lead to many of us either not running for re-election, which I'm sure many people will be happy with that, but I also think that somebody said, I often take things personal, but yeah, politics is personal to me. Politics is very personal, and that's why I decided to run. And I want to see fair representation in all levels of government. But I think one of the biggest things that we have to do as public officials, community members, business leaders, any other person, is to publicly reject abuse and to not allow that kind of discourse to continue, because it is actually not the way that we will solve the challenges in front of us, and they are many, and we need people. We need people with ideas. We need people who are directly impacted by these challenges to come forth and share their stories and also present solutions. And I want to work with those people. I've never been closed off to that, and I don't want to close myself off because I feel like there are threats to my safety. So, and that includes my mental health safety and all of our mental health safety. Wow, okay, I just wanted to say that, and I will wrap it up there. Happy to talk with anybody about this and any other thing. Please, if you're watching, please reach out. Okay, Ifo.
Just wanted to give an update sent by, this is Sakani that sent this, regarding the Apodaca Park conversation there. Just want to clarify the funds for the Apodaca Aquatic Playground remain committed to completing this project, currently budgeted at $1.9 million. The notice to proceed of demolishing the old swimming pool was issued on February 22nd. The state issued the demo permit on the 1st, and demolition will commence tomorrow on the old pool. Yeah. So the staff is working on procuring a contractor to commence construction of the aquatic playground at Apodaca Park, and more updates to come in a few months. And then staff is aware of the graffiti on the restrooms, facilities. They will need to be sandblasted. So this is currently on the staff's to-do list for completion. And then Councilman McClure, with the legislative team, we can certainly get together and talk about what our plans have been. And we certainly learn every time we go up there. And so we do have some kind of a team, but we can certainly talk about that and how we become more effective moving forward. Although my time's short, we'll be able to address that. I'll have other times. There's other times for farewells, but this is no. There's other. We'll have other times. So I'm not trying to give a farewell speech here, but I do appreciate the faith that the council has had on our staff, our internal staff, to be able to post internally. That's a big deal, I think, for transition, for, again, just the statement that you've been able to, chosen to do that has shown a lot of faith in the staff that we have. I'll add my faith to that we have a ton of applicants, very much qualified to be able to continue, and so that's what's making this transition easier. So I think the public can have confidence that we'll continue to move forward. And so as I'm transitioning, you'll have, again, the city manager will be coming from our current organization, and so I don't think there'll be anything lost in translation or in transition. And so that's a great thing to have. But again, I appreciate it, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, for that faith. And like I said, I'll have other time to give my farewells, and but thank you. Yeah. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I wasn't going to talk about that either because I didn't want to cry 2 weeks in a row, you know what I mean? So thank you, Ifo, and thank you for that Apodaca Park update. All right, we are at the end of our meeting today.
Move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.